Welcome to Fan4Racing Radio. I'm Fan4Racing Sharon, and joining me tonight is Jay Huseman. Unfortunately, Chris is not here today because he had a family situation come up, and so we'll have to look forward to seeing Chris sometime next week. But Jay and I have a full plate of things to discuss here tonight. We always kind of get started with how was the racing at the ROVAL for the NASCAR Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series, as well as at Toledo for the season finale for the ARCA Menards series. So your thoughts, Jay?
Well, I'll start with the ARCA Menards series. Being at Toledo, it was their championship weekend, and obviously Brendan Queen, Butterbean, all he had to do was start. I'm trying off the top of my head. I'm trying to think. I know he didn't win the race, but was up top five, just doing what he had to do, stay out of trouble. And again, didn't have to win it to take it by any means. You know, there was some action there. I know LeVar Scott got run into the middle barricade. That was one of those scary situations. Yes. Could have been a lot worse, that's for sure. So, but I thought it was some good racing. I think we see some of the talent that's coming along in that series. So I thought it was good racing. Again, we've talked about this and here at Fan4Racing. The drawback of a season-long points championship where it's pretty much decided just doesn't bring that intrigue to the final race or, final couple races as it's been. But I thought there was still some good racing in that race itself. So it was good. The ROVAL, and I know this leads into several topics of that, for the truck series, first time there, unfortunately, I think that showed. You got a veteran like Grant Infinger, and that's one of my favorite drivers, and he admitted it. I mean, lap one, he said, yeah, over the radio as you were racing it out, I'm going to have to make some apologies. He made a mistake. I mean, wiped out 3 of the 4 top running championship contenders. One of them being Corey Heim. Big shout out here. That's what you call a championship team, because lap 1, corner 1, or corner 2, maybe, stuffing it in the wall, the truck being damaged, not destroyed, but damaged, to overcome that and come back and win the race. And I hate to say this, but he was probably owed a few where something like that, they should have gotten the win anyway, because he's lost several that were outside of his control. So, it all equals out, if you will. But overall, great race. And again, maybe a little less experience. The trucks handle a little bit different. So I wouldn't say it was bad, but certainly wasn't necessarily maybe as good as it could have been. But again, it was their first time. The trucks are all a little bit different. Hey, pup. So again, I thought it was good. I thought there was some great racing, again, with the overcoming, the drivers that had to overcome that, the playoff implications throughout it added a lot to that race. Same with the Xfinity series. There you still had the expected result of Connor Zilic winning the race. Again, you kind of had him penned in, probably a pretty heavy-handedly penned in, just like SVG in the Cup Series. I know they were talking about that as far as and Corey Heim in the Truck Series being as dominant as he's been, that the odds this weekend, were probably a total for all 3 races. You could have done the trifecta, and it was probably still 2-1 at best, because they were all the heavy odds-on favorites to win. I thought the strategies in the Cup and Xfinity changed their races up and were really good and interesting. Sammy Smith there making a pit call. And I know they talked about this in both races. If you are a little behind who is ever leading in the Xfinity, Connor Zilic being the dominant car, best in show, if you will, in order to beat him, you had to do something different. And so they pulled Sammy Smith in with like 10, 12 laps to go, hoping for a caution. and take advantage of good tires. The caution came and they had their shot. I mean, and that's all you could ask for. There were several cars that stayed out, gave them a little buffer. And I think Sammy ended up second. Sorry. Sammy Smith ended up second. So it was working. It just they ran out of time, but the call did play out the way they wanted it to. On the Cup side, same thing. I mean, you got to do something to try and beat SVG, and just following him 10, 15 seconds behind ain't going to cut it. So get fresher tires, mix it up and hope for the best. There are a couple, I think, that showed they could contend and race with, but you still ended up with that. I think it ended up being 15-second margin of victory. And that was with SVG actually losing tires there on that final lap. I know he smoked them a couple times and bobbled a couple corners, but had, again, a 17-second lead versus those trying to run him down. So, but like I said, I think that Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson showed they can race with him if they can keep up with them. And they made a big point of that, especially there at the end. SVG really does well on the worn out tires, manages his tires, keeps them under him a little bit longer, or even as they go away, just does a better job of handling that. Whereas we saw several drivers that could go hard run with him, but then when the tires went away, they had nothing and they had to pit again. They were trying to do the pit 2-1 to him, just trying to keep fresh tires to his older, and he was still a little bit better. I mean, that just tells you the talent of him as a driver. I know people are getting tired of it, and, it seems like it's repetitive, and it kind of is. But think about that. Appreciate that. I mean, honestly, that just tells you how good he is, and he mixed it up a little. Him and Kyle Larson got into a little bumper cars. I know I saw a little bit, or I heard a little bit. I didn't see it on TV, but I heard a little of Kyle Larson's post-race interview. Yeah, he felt like SVG got into him where he shouldn't have or could have avoided it. And SVG said he did get in a little and give him a bump. He said the retaliation was more of that anger and frustration, not accidental. But they did so, and they pushed and they shoved and they rubbed and raced. Nobody took each other out. And then that brought Christopher Bell into it, and he was able to get by him and mix up with them as well. So, again, I thought there was some great racing throughout it, as well as some blunders and other things. And I know some of them we got specific hot topics for. So I'll let you jump in here, Sharon.
Yes, I thought the racing was pretty exciting. And I will tell you that, I thought I still had this up here, but I don't. I thought, I'll start with the ARCA as you did. Brendan McQueen, you're right. All he had to do was start the race. He ended up finishing second to Max Reeves. And Max Reeves was going after that owner's championship between him and Brent Cruz. I think they won 6 races over the season. And so that was the battle between Max Reeves and Brendan Queen. Brendan Queen, actually, with his second place finish, ended up winning the owner's title by 16 points over Joe Gibbs Racing, which I thought that was pretty exciting to watch. And then the other thing that we were watching, and I think, it was just a matter of starting the race. Isabella Robusto won the Bounty Rookie of the Year challenge, and she's only the second female driver to have done that. She fell one short of on the top 5 list of drivers, female drivers with top 5s in the series. But I thought she had a really good season. She did have a little bit of a slump mid-season, but she kind of came back, had several top 5 finishes on the year. And I'm really happy for Isabella Robusto and what she's done in the ARCA Menards series with Venturini Motorsports. And speaking of that, this was the last race for Venturini Motorsports in the ARCA Menards series. And I thought they did a nice tribute to Bill Venturini at the beginning of the race. And having worked with them over the years, I'm really going to miss them being in the ARCA Menards series. And they've been a strong supporter of our radio show, but they've been a very strong supporter of the ARCA Menards series. Doesn't even come close with what they've done in the ARCA Menards series and the trails that they have blazed over the years. And it's been really fun watching them and working with them the last several years here on Fan4Racing Radio. So we'll certainly miss them. And then also in going to the ROVAL, the Truck Series race, got off to a bumpy start. You're right. They've never raced there before on the ROVAL in particular. And it definitely showed. They needed a little more practice time to be able to race on that ROVAL. And if they go back there in future years, I'm sure that they will improve their craft on that track. It's unfortunate that accident happened. I know Grant Dinfinger accepted it and everything. Corey Heim was able to rebound. That was fun to watch as he was able to rebound because Brent Cruz pretty much dominated that race. And it wasn't until the final restart that Corey Heim had his chance to go after that victory. So I really enjoyed watching the race. Lane Riggs, unfortunately, had some mechanical problems throughout the race. He ended up with a 21st place finish. It put him below the round of 8 cut line. And so that will be fun to watch in the upcoming races with the Truck Series. They'll be racing with the Xfinity and Cup Series at Talladega and again at Martinsville, with all 3 series having their round of 8 elimination race to determine the final 4 drivers that will move on to Phoenix for that championship race. So I'm looking forward to all of those races. In the Xfinity series, had Connor Zilic circled. I pretty much knew he was going to win that race, but it was pretty dramatic at the end of the race. NASCAR had to review some footage, make a determination over whether it was Sammy Smith or Taylor Gray who was going to move into the round of 8. And you had to feel for both of those drivers. It was pretty dramatic and kind of anxious, waiting for them to get the word. In the end, it was Taylor Gray who did not make it into the round of 8. And he acknowledged that there were plenty of races. He mentioned Bristol, where he could have made up more points that would have made the difference. And Jay, you and I talked about this all season long, how much a difference 1 point can make, especially in these playoff moments. And this was one of those playoff moments where that 1 point made a huge difference. And I had to give credit. It was the crew chief for Sammy Smith that made all the difference in the world with that early pit stop that allowed him to be in the right place at the right time to put himself right into that round of 8. Unfortunately for Taylor Gray, it didn't work out quite so well. Let's see, with regard to the Cup Series race, pretty much had SVG circled for that race. We pretty much knew who was going to win. But it was a lot of fun watching Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. You can tell that they are students of SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen. They are learning and getting better, but they do not have the smoothness that SVG has in maneuvering around those turns in the road courses. Will they get better? Yes. Did they show that this weekend? Yes. And it was fascinating to watch them contend with SVG. I know there was some bumping and banging between Kyle Larson and Shane Van Gisbergen, and you kind of outlined some of the comments that were made there. Shane Van Gisbergen agreed that, yeah, I kind of roughed him up that one time, got in a little bit too deep. And, he fully expected, to be good, hard racing in those laps. But you're right. He was able to eventually get around both drivers and ended up with a 15-second lead over the second place finishers. The other dramatic part of the playoff race for the Cup Series was going back and forth between Ross Chastain and Joey Logano and who was going to make it into the playoffs. And in the end, Ross Chastain knew he was in a desperate situation, made a desperate move. And I did hear actions detrimental today. And I know he and Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin had a gentleman's conversation after the race. I was really proud of how both of them handled that. Joey Logano Ross Chastain went over and congratulated Joey Logano after he made it into the round of 8. And I enjoyed seeing all of that. But on actions detrimental, Denny Hamlin did say that he thinks that Ross Chastain should be penalized because that kind of a move should not be accepted as the kind of move for a playoff race. Now,
I know you like to say that. We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
We're going to get to that. So I'm not going to give any of my thoughts at this point. But I will say that was a comment made by Denny Hamlin. And he was still respectful of Ross Chastain. He understood why he made the move. But he felt that it's something that NASCAR needs to take a look at. And we'll have to wait and see if NASCAR does that. I think that they probably will, considering what happened with Austin Dillon. But that's yet to be determined. And I know Jay and I have that as a topic of discussion. So we'll save that for later. But I thought all of the races were what we would expect playoff races and especially elimination races to be for the Xfinity Series and for the Cup Series. It was the first race in the round of 8 for the Truck Series. So that one was a good race as well. And of course, even though we knew who the champion was going to be and so forth in the ARCA Menards Series, they put on a really decent show as well. So with that, Jay, any other comments that you want to make?
Yeah, I do. I was writing some things down here. If you could see, one you hit on of most certainly Venturini's, of what they've been to the ARCA Menards Series. We've talked about McAnally being the core organization long-term with the West Series. Venturini's, along with Kimmel's, pretty much have been the ARCA Menards Series. So, again, you got to respect it. They said, it was time. They were going to go enjoy doing some things in life, and it was that time. We heard the announcement earlier. They had sold out. We're going to sell out to Nitro Motorsports. I think some of them are still staying on as part of the deal for a year or so. And that's their choice. And it's their time to, if that's what they choose, you got to respect that. But they certainly will be missed. And you can't overstate what they have done for the sport, especially for that series. Going to the Truck Series, you mentioned Brent Cruz. And I got to say, this is one of those of, if you want to see me eat on live TV or broadcast here, eating crow. I said Brent Cruz wasn't ready to step in and win a race in the Truck Series in just the limited starts. He certainly showed he was capable and had a shot at it, which was a little surprising to me. I know there were some things, Corey Heim and a couple other top contenders having to work their way through the field, and mentioned Heim did prevail anyway. But I got to give a shout out and acknowledge that I didn't put enough credit towards what Brent Cruz can do. Especially, again, you got to give Tricon. They ended up with a 1-2-3 finish. First time in their history. Gio Ruggiero coming home third. Again, was in there mixing it up. Did he have the winning truck? Needed a little bit of luck to fall his way, but was right there in contention, and they got that 1-2-3 finish. So that was impressive. So I got to give a shout out to Brent Cruz for that. The other thing, well, I got two more things. We're talking about, I know we'll go a little more in depth with Hamlin, and then it being an elimination race from that situation and all things that happened. Well, I'll go a little more in depth there, but that's where I kind of fall on some of that of what I want to bring out about it. Again, it happened. You're right. I thought everybody handled themselves well, and I'll go in more in depth later. But the two, you mentioned Taylor Gray, and I think it was Bubba Wallace, and then maybe even Ross Chastain with it. During their interviews, they said, well, what more could you have done? I know Bubba Wallace specifically said, well, it's about last week. Going back to Denny Hamlin, his situation with Denny Hamlin. They talked, that's been resolved, if you will, but it is not forgotten because Wallace took a little jab about that. But Taylor Gray said, too, he went back to Bristol. Ross Chastain mentioned it, of what else throughout the year. Yeah, it came down to this race and this moment, but there were so many opportunities throughout the year. For Taylor Gray, especially because he had a couple that could have won or was in a better position, either made a mistake or it was taken from him, however you want to look at it. Of those 1 or 2 points, especially if they were bonus points that carried into the playoffs, would have been a factor. So this goes into another argument about the long-term, season-long point standings. Well, the whole season needs to matter. It does. It came into play here. Had they done better in the regular season and built up those points, it would have come into play. So I feel like that people's argument that, well, the rest of the season no longer matters is absolutely just not true. And I'm going to get down off that little bit of a rant and soapbox, as we like to call it here. But that shows you. I mean, like I said, those three for sure, I know mentioned previous races and situations. Chastain, I was kind of leery about bringing up because he admitted it. He was so hard on himself. He made 2, 3, maybe even mistakes during that race alone. Speeding on pit road, overshooting the corner coming off of pit road. He was making sure he got as much as he could on pit road. When he got to the end, he beat everybody to the timing line, but then couldn't turn and had to stop, which means he wasn't maintaining pace. So he was put back. And I think NASCAR made the right call there. He crossed the line before other drivers, but then had to stop and did not maintain. We've seen that in the past. Generally, it's when you're shutting your car off, trying to save fuel, and then it doesn't refire. If you don't maintain pace and lose positions, you lose those positions. And I got to say, I think NASCAR did a great job. They looked at it. They discussed it. I know on TV they said they went to a commercial and they said, we're not sure what they're going to do. I think they made the right call with that. He did lose those positions. So again, he was working to recover from his own mistakes. And like I said, he was very, I want to say Chase Elliott style of hard on himself, acknowledged it, admitted it, took all the blame on himself as the driver. He said, hey, the crew, the team brought me the car. I messed it up. So got to give him a shout out for that. And again, I'll go into more detail when we get to that specific topic.
Okay. I can't say it any better than what you said it. I would just be kind of repeating everything. Yeah, I agree with you. Brent Cruz. I did want to comment on Brent Cruz. Brent Cruz, yes, he did a fantastic job in that Truck Series race. He was on his way to winning it. But unfortunately, Corey Heim did catch up with him and have to go after that victory and did get that victory. I was really impressed. We had Corey Heim, 10 wins on the season. Connor Zillage, 10 wins on the season. SVG, 5 wins on road courses. And I cannot remember the last time we've seen that kind of success across NASCAR's top 3 series. All of them making history within this sport. And SVG, trust me, he is getting better on the ovals. And Kyle Larson said it. It's going to be tough to beat SVG if he gets good on the ovals. If he's as good on the ovals as he is on the road courses, we're going to see this more from SVG. And you're right. We should be really appreciating the type of success we're seeing. This is phenomenal to see this kind of success in all 3 series from different drivers. And I understand the fatigue that some people are feeling, but try to break through that and really appreciate what we're watching before our very eyes, which is history in the making. And I don't think it's going to be over after this year. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of success from Corey Heim, a lot of success from Connor Zilic, a lot of success from SVG. And are the other drivers going to catch up to them? Absolutely. And that is going to be fun to watch. We watched it this weekend. We got a little preview of that this weekend with Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell actually challenging Shane Van Gisbergen in the Cup Series. So this is something that you do not want to downplay too much, because it's pretty darn exciting watching these guys. Jay, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, you could see that there, huh? The other thing mentioning there was it was an elimination race for the Xfinity and Cup. So some of the things that went on, that intensity comes from it was an elimination race. So that does bring an added level of, and I know that'll tie into a couple other topics, and now I lost it. You were talking about,
appreciating.
Hold on a second. Let me find that train of thought. It went straight through. God darn it. I didn't write it down quick enough. Talking about Ross Chastain of learning from one another, because they were talking about Chastain helping SVG on oval tracks, and then vice versa of SVG helping Chastain on road courses. So there was that. There was something else, and if it comes back to me, I'll jump back in. If you still had your train of thought, because that's what I was feeding off of, and I totally blanked and lost it there. Sorry.
Okay, well, if you think of it, give me a sign, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I thought the racing was fantastic, and I have to remind myself too, because I'm known to have driver fatigue too. But I remind myself all the time that what is happening across all 3 series, which I have never seen in the time that I've been watching NASCAR. I've never seen it in all 3 series where we have phenomenal drivers that are just doing so well. And they're going to make all 3 series better. And this is what I think gets missed by a lot of people. Those drivers are going to make these series even better, because the other drivers are going to be doing everything they can to learn from those drivers. So they're going to make all 3 of these series, I think, even better over time. So hang in there. Okay, Jay.
I got it back, yeah. Because you were talking about the 2 different series of Connor Zilic moving into the Cup Series next year. Yeah, SVG was the rookie this year, if you will. I know he had some starts. Connor Zilic has done the same thing. If nothing else, it may come from within teammates in the organization of Trackhouse, because we have seen Connor Zilic and SVG go toe-to-toe in some. And the one that really set me off was of the dominance of SVG. It was Tyler Reddick who took the pole, because, again, he had the record of poles going with those wins as well. Tyler Reddick actually got the pole from him. That's what it initially set me off, was give a shout out to Tyler Reddick, got the pole from him.
Absolutely. That was exciting. And that's what I mean. We're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. And imagine next year in the Cup Series, if we have Heim, Zilich, and SVG all competing in that Cup Series. And as they improve their skills in the Cup car, I think it's just going to be fantastic. And like I say, they are going to make this sport even better. So stay tuned for some exciting things happening across NASCAR's all three series. And Cutter Zilich, remember, is still going to be racing part-time in the Xfinity series next season as well. So I just think we saw some fantastic racing. I'm going to withhold some of my other comments until we get to those topics. But I thought it was fantastic. Where do you want to go from here, Jay?
Well, I was just typing onto the comment board here. Talk about the ROVAL itself. We went to the ROVAL a few years back, and I don't remember exactly how many years it's been. But at that time, the next gen car wasn't performing as well on 1.5 miles. So they had come away from that. Charlotte was one that was suffering as far as fan attendance for the fall race. The spring race being the Coke 600, you got that built into it because it's a crown jewel. So the question now becomes and we've seen it when it comes to, and some of that ties into SVG's dominance, but have road courses run its course, but very specifically the ROVAL, and going back to a 1.5 mile race for the fall Charlotte race. So has the ROVAL, as I say, run its course. And I want to throw this out. I heard it, I don't know if they coined it, but on the morning show this morning on Sirius XM, Bagley and Pistone, we're calling it maybe Mario Kart racing. And that has to do, I think, with that level of it is also that elimination race. And that's where I said I'd tie that in. The intensity level and things that were going on, it was an elimination race, so it's all on the line. It is the ROVAL. You have some of these corners where things can happen, did happen, whatnot. But is that too much then for a NASCAR race?
Well, and I don't know if that would be a good marketing play or not.
Yeah. I thought it fit and it was kind of funny for sure.
Yeah, I think people could have a lot of fun with that. But let me just tell you, I do not think that the ROVAL has run its course. I've heard a lot of conversation about that on listening to different radio shows and such. But I think that it is the perfect race for the playoffs, and that they can still keep that road course flavor. I think if you put any other road course into play here, I think that it would make it maybe less exciting as an elimination race within the playoffs. So I like that they are keeping the Charlotte Motor Speedway 1.5 mile track in the regular season, and then having the ROVAL for the playoffs. I think that works well. And the elimination race, wow, there was a lot of racing and good, hard racing that was going on this ROVAL. And I do think that there are certain drivers that are going to be more suited to the ROVAL. But that's true of all the tracks, that you've got certain tracks that drivers like and do well at. But again, the more we race on those tracks, the better they are going to be. So no, do not take the ROVAL out of the playoffs. I think it should stay.
This is one where I see both sides and understand it, and I honestly would be okay. I'm not sure they'd want to do this, but again, we seem like we have the 3-year deal, or even every other year if they wanted to logistically do it that way. I don't know what that would entail as far as the logistics and cost. But if nothing else, going every 3 years or so and changing it back and forth. I know there's discussion as to what Indianapolis is going to do. Right now, one thing I look at it, take the playoff race itself away from it, but just being the ROVAL. of it is unique. It was the first design for that. I know we also did the Daytona road course, but that was due to COVID, some other issues, and then Indianapolis as well. And I understand that was the reason that the 1.5 miles or the racing on Indy, a 2-mile track, wasn't as good as they wanted. And we have gotten better with that package and the way they race on that. But I also, and I'm going to try not go real deep into this, but the fans can't keep flip-flopping and they didn't want the 1.5 miles. Go away from that. We want road course, and it's more exciting. Oh, you got too many road courses. Go to 1.5 miles. You can't please them all the time. And honestly, I've said this before. I feel like certain fans, if they're even fans, just want to find something to complain about. So be real careful about that. I think the ROVAL is very unique, and I know we still have the street course, but I believe next year they're going from 7 down to 5. And I think that is a good mix of road courses. I understand this year it seemed like that all of the road courses, with the exception here of the ROVAL, ended up in a short time period, like 1.5 months. And again, you had SVG kind of adding to that. If he won everyone, that may be part of why they're saying, oh, we don't want road courses no more. So I understand that and get that. I know that's something at the time talked about on a lot of, like you said, a lot of different radio shows, podcasts, everything. Maybe try and get those road courses spaced out some so that it's not all of them within that 1.5 months, 6-week period where you ran 4 road courses and it seems like one driver is absolutely the only driver in the field. But face the facts. When it comes to road courses, he's got a shot going into next year to tie Jeff Gordon now with 6 road course wins in a row. I don't like using the time frame as far as how quickly he's done it, because again, for Jeff Gordon to get that many, it took 3 years because they only ran 2 a year. Well, they ran 7 this year alone, So yeah, you can't compare the time frame because they have more options to win and run on road courses, as well as get better. Just as with Jeff Gordon at the time, I think it was Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, then Chase Elliott came along. Again, Chase Elliott started picking him up and was considered the king, but he was doing it all in 1 or 2 years because they had more opportunities. So again, you got to look at all the factors there when you start comparing where it ranks time-wise. The streak itself, whether it be 1 a year, 2 a year, or 5 in a year, SVG has won them in a row and just dominant on them. There is no arguing that. But I also then don't think that you take it away. William Byron has won 2 Daytona 500s in a row. Are we saying, hey, take away the Daytona 500? No. I mean, that's why I don't understand that concept. Like I said, I was one that was, going back to Sharon, you talking about the street course with the ROVAL, when they first said what they were going to do, I was like, man, you're crazy. What are you doing? Again, I'd eat some crow there. It turned out, that first one, a little wild and crazy, just like we saw with the Truck Series, but they adapted to it, and I think it has become one of the best races. Now you mix in that it's a playoff race. Several years it's been the cutoff race, the drama that adds. I like that. I'm with you. I think that just adds to it. The one thing that I feel like fans react and want to change something, put it on the drivers. Can you control yourself in your car going into said corner? Yes, then do so. Don't blame it on the track. Don't blame it on all this other. Control yourself. At some point you got to put it on the drivers who are driving the cars. They always like to say you got more than one pedal there. You got the gas pedal as well as a brake pedal. Some of that I think has to go back to the drivers. Just because the option to drive in deep and wipe out 10 cars is there, don't mean you have to take it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'll tell you, with regard to the road courses being all grouped together, I can argue both sides of that, because I think by having them all together like that, it gives drivers a chance to really learn what the differences are between those tracks, to become comfortable with racing on those road courses. And And as you said, as they get more comfortable and as they learn, and kind of fine tune, they're going to be better at it. And we've watched that over the years. We've been watching NASCAR a long time. And over the years, they used to have to bring in road course ringers to race on the road courses because none of the NASCAR drivers knew how to race on a road course. And so they learned from people like Boris Said. They learned from Ron Fellows. They learned from all these different road course racers how to improve their craft. And they did that. They got better at racing on the road courses. And that's why we have all these road courses now. Now, I know NASCAR back down to 5, and maybe that is kind of a good place to be. And maybe it should be spread out. I'm not sure, but I think that I could argue both sides of that story and be okay with it either way. I like the road courses. I think we see some really good racing. And like I said, over the years, we've seen them improve their craft and be really, really good at it. We've got up and coming drivers now that are coming in and racing road courses to get that seat time. The ARCA Menards series is racing road courses now to give drivers that seat time and become comfortable with racing on the road courses. So again, let's not have that knee-jerk reaction where we change everything up based on what fans are saying. And a lot of times, they end up regretting it afterwards. And I've seen that happen more than once in this sport. People cry and whine and complain that they want something changed. And the minute it changes, now we've got complaints about that. So I think NASCAR has to be very careful about making those changes and really use good common sense about it. What's putting on a good show? We just spent a lot of time talking about how good the racing was on the ROVAL. I saw somebody comment about, now we're talking about 15th place drivers instead of those that were racing at the front. Were you watching what was happening at the front in that Cup Series race between Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Shane Van Gisbergen? There was some good, hard racing happening at the front of that race as well as in the mid-pack. That's what I like to watch. I like to see good, hard racing throughout the field and not just at the front of the pack or the back of the pack or in the middle of the pack. I like it everywhere. So we would not see that. Let me just say this. We would not see that with a full season race for points. And like you said, the full season is relevant even in the playoffs because those drivers all know, those that are drivers that were eliminated know that there were opportunities earlier in the season that could have made a difference. We talked about what a big difference 1 point can make when it comes to the playoffs. And they get those 1 points. The fastest lap is a 1 point. You've got a chance with stage wins. You get extra points for stage wins. You get extra points for where you are in the top 10 at the end of a stage. There's all kinds of opportunities to get extra points that can make that difference when it comes to the playoffs. And so the regular season is still relevant. And if you're not seeing that, I feel sorry for you because it makes the regular season just as exciting as the playoffs. So we have a regular season champion. There's a lot going on. And I remember the days when we had a full season of points. And you know what? People were not tuning in because they knew who the champion was going to be. Keep in mind that this time of the year, NASCAR is competing with collegiate football. They're competing with the NFL. They're competing with so many different other sports venues. The playoffs were created to compete against all of those other sports venues and have our own playoff system. So please, NASCAR, do not change the playoff format. We need that, especially at this time of the year. So I'm okay with some changes, and we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit as well. But I did want to just mention, we just spent all this time talking about how great the racing was on the ROVAL. Do not change the ROVAL road course in the playoffs. I think it added a really good dimension to the racing that we're watching. And it does mix it up. They have to win on short tracks. They have to win on road courses. They have to win on super speedways, intermediate tracks. All of that is in the playoff. Don't take the road course away. I'm sorry, I'm getting wound up here.
No, well, and you know that I threw that up there as one of the last possible topics as well. So I'm with you. I don't think it needs to go away. I think NASCAR has heard the fans and moderated. Again, they went from 7 road courses down to 5. And that was something, again, Bagley and Pistone, and I don't remember which one of them said they did feel that was going in the right direction. Not that they're opposed to having some road courses, but not as many as maybe they did this year, due to the fact that NASCAR is an oval track series, if you will, and that's where the roots are. Okay. And I get that you do have to evolve, and they have, even by doing it as a ROVAL, not even a road course, which that's a whole separate conversation. But so I do think it needs to be mixed in, but you're right. As a whole, NASCAR is oval track racing, whether it be short track, intermediate, or super speedway is another topic as well. But to mix in, I thought I was okay with this 7. I'm okay with them going down to 5. One thing you mentioned when I talked about not having them all in a row, you came from the driver's side versus the fans. The fans are the ones that were saying, hey, there was so much boom, boom, boom. It was all SVG. Okay, you came at it from the driver's side of, if we're going to go road course racing, get in a rhythm and do it weekly or semi-weekly or whatever, so they can get better at it. Well, that does up their game, and they can compete with SVG, which then provides a better showing for the fans. So there is something to be said for that, of spacing them out. I was on the side of, maybe space them out, one a month, throughout the season. But you brought up a great point there. There again, then it's okay, I did it, and I think I learned something, but it's another month before I apply it to another track. Yeah, and drivers will tell you that. Just like anytime they have an off week or whatever, that's why they use the sim, is just for seat time and to get in that rhythm. So there is something to be said about that, of having them all in a stretch like that. The other thing I wrote down real quick, when you were talking about bringing in road course ringers, and they're only skilled on road courses. At one time, when you mentioned Boris Said and Ron Fellows, one of the other ones was AJ Allmendinger. Well, guess what? Allmendinger is now a weekly competitor, has shown he can win on ovals, and is in there in contention. It took him time, so give SVG that time, and don't complain when he does. You mentioned it. Kyle Larson said it. Hey, when he gets ovals figured out, we're in trouble. And he has. He got his top 10 there at Bristol, and we've documented that, of how he has improved in the latter half of the season on his average finish, going from, I think, 28 up to 20th, and actually probably even better after the 10th place at Bristol. So give him time. He was, whether you agree with that or not, he was a rookie this year, first year full-time competitive. So be careful what you ask for with that. Then the last thing, and this kind of ties in before we wrap up, but you were talking about, again, going back to the point systems. On the Cup side, and I don't have the old point standing statistics to say, but I don't think we have the dominance on the Cup side we have. If we did not have the playoffs, I feel like right now, Connor Zilic would be written in as the Xfinity Series champion. All he has to do is finish 30th or better. Same with Corey Hyman, the trucks. I think he could be probably again, even lower of start every race, the final 4 races. Is that really what you want? I understand the frustration. And I go back to Kevin Harvick, 10 races in the year. He didn't show up in the playoffs, didn't win it. When I think of the trucks, I think back to William Byron, because he had a blown motor in the wrong race at the wrong time, finished the season and ended up winning. And had he been into that next round without that blown motor, he would have won. Okay, but that wasn't the case. And I don't hear him being the one complaining about it either. He said, yeah, it stinks, or whatever he said of that. But that's what it is, I mean, I don't see the desire to go back to that. And I don't think we ever will go back. And I'm going to get on my little rant with it too, of the fans because keep your fingers crossed. No, I really don't think it'll ever go back to that. We may go to a little more towards that, but I don't think we'll go back to it. And that's what Bob Pockris said. And I heard some of the comments and things said about him, oh, he's a sellout. He's towing NASCAR's line and all this. And there again, I was just like, wow, just because they have a different opinion from you and you just attack like that, that says something about y'all. I mean, just that bothers me. But anyway, you're on mute, Sharon. You're on mute.
Yeah, I was just saying, you know why they're NASCAR reporters? Because they're fans of the sport, just like you and me. They love the sport. They love what's happening in NASCAR, and that's why they're doing it. So, yeah, I don't think the ROVAL's run its course. I'm happy to see them if they keep that in the schedule. I can't remember. Is it on the schedule for next year?
It is for next year. From what they said, their understanding, it is the Bank of America 400. I believe it is still scheduled for the 400. So at least for one more year, the Charlotte ROVAL should be in play.
Oh, okay, and I think that's a good plan. And we'll see what happens moving forward. But they're making a move in the direction that fans are asking for, which is to bring it down from 7 to 5. So I guess that's a good thing. Hopefully that'll be a happy medium. Whether or not they space it or otherwise, I'm good either way because I just enjoy the racing. I think there's pros and cons, like I mentioned earlier. And so we'll just have to see how that plays out. I can't think of anything else you said that I wanted to comment to. But like I say, we've just spent all this time talking about how good the racing was on the ROVAL. I just don't want to see them take it away. I want to see them continue with the ROVAL in the playoffs. Jay, I'm going to move on to the next topic if you're okay with that.
Hey, sure. Okay. I don't know if you're going in line, so I don't know if it's the one I'm thinking, but
it is.
There you go.
Likely the one you're thinking. And what we referenced it a little bit earlier, was Chastain out of line. He made that last lap race to the checkered flag bonsai move is what I'm calling it. I've heard some people calling it Hail Melon 2. So 2.0, if you will. So what are your thoughts here? I kind of gave a little bit of my thoughts earlier.
This is one of, generally I defend Ross Chastain. I appreciate more so than you do, Sharon. I'll admit that, of aggressive driving. The outright dump and run. Yeah, it'd be a tough one to call. Had he done what he did and got past Hamlin and not spun out himself and advanced, it's in NASCAR's hands because they may have to make a call. What is it? People want to come. I think you went back to Ross Chastain or Austin Dillon. And that was for the win, not just the position. But in this case, it was just a position that would have saved Ross Chastain's points and what he needed. it's tough because, again, of any other time, and I think of Carson Hocevar and Kyle Busch. Hocevar hit him, Kyle Busch spun out, he got by him. Okay. You didn't necessarily, it was for the position. It just didn't determine whether or not he was in the playoffs. Obviously he was close enough. I wouldn't call it quite as a bonsai move as Austin Dillon. However, was he going to make the corner and be able to drive by him without running into him and through him? Probably not. So that's where I said it gets to be in a really tough position. And I don't know if NASCAR will penalize because he penalized himself. It didn't even benefit him because they both spun out. Question being, if he had done it and gotten by him, do you then penalize it and call it rough driving, if you will? I think NASCAR is in a hard position because, like I said, then you're going to get into the, hey, everybody that spins somebody out because every 1 point matters throughout the season. Now you're looking at Formula One of a steward of, hey, there was contact, you intentionally spun somebody out to get by them. I think you're going to set an example that may be hard to recover from if you don't want to go to the no contact, we're going to call it out every time you touch somebody. It's a tough one, and I know this will tie into the other end of the next one if we go in order from Denny Hamlin's side, but I think it would be really tough. It was very borderline of that last-ditch absolute bonsai move. I don't view it quite as bad as what we saw from Austin Dillon, because he was close enough that he ran hard and he ran deep. I get that. Had Hamlin not been there, or he had hit him, would he have made the corner? I don't know. That corner would have been really tough. I think he would have. I think back to what was it, Kyle Larson, it would have swung up, maybe hit the wall and bounced off and come down. It's tough. I think it really would put NASCAR in a very bad position. And unfortunately, being an elimination race and he needed that one position, that goes back to I did what I had to do. And I know you don't like to hear that. But like I said, we see it other places where we saw whether it be retaliatory or not, or just aggression. Think about the start of the truck race. Grant Enfinger spun somebody out. Did he? And those were other championship contenders. Are we going to penalize him? He spun somebody out, whether it was intentional or a mistake. I don't want to see it become where a Formula One steward type thing. And I think this is a position, if NASCAR were to say we have to penalize him for any contact or any spin out, that's the direction they're headed. But I also feel they did need to step in with Austin Dillon's. Like I said, being this one didn't work, it'd be tough to say whether or not it would have, so we don't really know. You got to come off mute again.
I was trying to gear up the video of that bonsai move so that people can see what we're talking about. I thought it was an egregious move. It did take out himself as well as Denny Hamlin. But what if Denny Hamlin had been Joey Logano and he took out both of them in that move? Okay. It wasn't, in my mind, and I usually defend Ross Chastain as well. I know he's an aggressive driver. And Ross Chastain admitted as well that he didn't care at that point. He was in desperation mode and he was going to do whatever he had to do to win. And you're right. I don't necessarily like that you feel your last resort is to wreck somebody in order to get a win, or in this case, in order to get into the playoffs. He didn't just hit Denny Hamlin. I don't know. I wanted to show the video, and I'm going to continue to look for it. To me, it was just as egregious as the hit that Austin Dillon made when he drove through, and that's basically what he did. He drove through Denny Hamlin in order to make that turn. Could he have done it a different way? Well, he had several chances. He had some self-inflicted penalties and things that happened in that race that caused him to have to race through the field a couple of times. And he raced through the field without bonsai moves. So I know he was running out of time. I know it was getting to be the last minute, and all of his chances were diminishing right before his very eyes. I get it. I get the whole thing. But I think Denny Hamlin brought up some very good points in his podcast. And one of them is, what if that was a playoff driver? Then you took them out and they too did not make it into the round of 8 because of that move. So I think NASCAR has to be really careful now. And I know we're going to get into this later on as well. So I'm not going to get into it, but I do think that NASCAR needs to take a look at it. They have to take into account that it was Denny Hamlin at this point in time. It didn't hurt Denny Hamlin. And that was one thing that Ross Chastain said he did take that into consideration when he decided to make that move, that Denny Hamlin was already in the playoffs. It was not going to prevent him from moving on into the round of 8. And so he made that calculated move based on knowing that information. To me, that doesn't excuse it. It doesn't tell me that you wouldn't make that same move if it had been somebody else. You did take it into consideration this time. Would you necessarily take it into consideration the next time? And I do think that NASCAR needs to take a look at it. And I think that there's a clear distinction here when you've got all the wheels off your car and you're hitting the next car the way that he did, that it turned both that car and himself, then I think that NASCAR needs to really look at that. And it worked. It didn't do any real damage in this particular case, but you never know who that person's going to be in the next go around. It's a desperation move, and I think that's the key word here. When it becomes a desperation move, it's probably an ill-advised move to make. And he even admitted, Ross Chastain even admitted in his interview that he needs to use more discretion when making some of those decisions, not just in the case of that move, but had he made more calculated decisions earlier in the race, that move would not have been right, unquote, necessary.
Right.
So again, I think that the word desperation, when you feel like you're making a desperation move, it's probably an ill-advised move unless you have extreme control that you're not going to wreck the next guy. In this case, though, he ran through him. And I do think that that's not the way that you want to win your way into the next round. It's not the way that's not a championship caliber move. Let me just put it that way.
Here's where I think the difference is, and I respect that, and I know your viewpoints, but that's a feeling a fan has as far as whether or not you want to see that. I compare it more to.
Let me just say, I'm not a fan of Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
Guy, but I'm not a fan of Denny Hamlin, so I'm not saying that because it's Denny Hamlin.
I'm saying of the dump and run, or dump to get a position in this case. I know it's not the win. Just of the aggressive, not passing them cleanly versus bumping when you don't have to. And you had a very good key word there, the desperation. I compare the overall situation back more so to Joey Logano and Martin Truex at Martinsville when Joey Logano did, and that was to get the win because that's the position he was in. Again, in this case, it was just that one position. That was all Chastain needed. So then it becomes a question, though, had he hit him and turned him, but Denny Hamlin not spun out? Is it a question whether or not that other driver spins out and not able to continue? I go back to Joey Logano. He hit Truex, moved him up the track, drove by him. Truex was able to continue. So then it doesn't look as bad, if you will. From that aspect, I think you're right. Chastain had his opportunities, made his mistakes, got himself in that big a hole to be in that position. So, yeah, and he got past. Again, Denny Hamlin had gotten by him. Hey, we're beat. At some point, you have to accept your beat. Did he still have enough to get into the corner to get alongside of him to even do it? Yes. So, there again, we saw other people. Take, for example, Kyle Larson at SVG. Larson dive bombed him, hit him pretty good, moved him up the track. SVG just didn't spin out and continued. Okay, so we're not going to penalize that one. So are we penalizing based on the car spinning off? If they choose to penalize at this point, that hasn't been determined. I know a lot of people are calling for it. Now, from the fans' perspective, do you want to see somebody win the championship in that manner? Probably not. I don't necessarily agree with that either. And like I said, my initial thought was, Chastain, you beat yourself early in the race, put yourself in that position. However, like I said, I don't want to see it. Talk about being to your roots and tradition and the way it has always been. NASCAR is a contact sport. They're full body stock cars, not Indy cars or Formula One. Formula One, you're not even allowed to change lanes twice and block or they penalize you. I don't want to see that. I am so opposed to that I'm willing to maybe let this go. But like I said, if NASCAR chooses to penalize them, I cannot blame them. I would not say, oh, NASCAR, you're not being fair. By no means, because it was that borderline. The Austin Dillon one, I think, was a matter of he had no shot. He went from however far back they said, and I know they measured it with telemetry and everything else. I mean, he had absolutely no prayer of anything working other than wrecking the two cars in front of him, and he did. I don't think this was quite that bad, but I also, like I said, it was a very bold and aggressive and probably wasn't going to work any other way. So, like I said, it's right in that absolute situation of it could go either way, and I'm not going to argue against it whichever way it goes.
Okay, I'm going to pull this up.
You got a video? Okay.
Yeah, I've got the video. Let me see. I think, okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Do I need to make it bigger?
It never hurts if you can, but I know with the split screen, it's going to be tight.
Okay, now this is where he's gotten ahead of him. And to me, there is a difference between, he did not lift. I think it's the velocity at which he hits him that makes the difference. There's one thing where you bump somebody or squeeze somebody up or whatever. But I think he hit him at a pretty high velocity. He was not going to lift.
Yeah, because he jumped.
I
saw where he jumped it. I mean, he threw it in there, and you're right. I didn't even try and take the corner from that aspect. But like I said, did we see that other times throughout the race for positions that weren't even about playoff spots or whatnot? I feel like we did. So if you're going to penalize the action, it has to be all of them. And that's where I think NASCAR could set a bad precedent. Tell me that, Sharon. Do you recall seeing that type of move other times throughout the race?
Show me the video of those kind of moves throughout the race.
You'd have to go back and watch it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said this one got highlighted. I'm
It's
saying
easy
there
to
was
say
other
it, but
moves.
I want you to prove it to me.
You'd have to. I deleted my recording. Sorry. No. No. I mean, there were other bold moves like that. Like I said, Kyle Larson's was maybe not quite that bad. Okay, but he drove in hard, and as did even SVG. Now SVG said his was a mistake. He wasn't trying to. Ross Chastain was trying to. I get that. That's why I said I think it's a very tough line.
I think there's enough SMT data available. He did not lift. He had his foot on the gas. He was going to drive through him if he had to.
Okay, and I'll take that. But then, like I said, you got to go back to every incident where somebody got hit and apply those same standards.
And let's say on the last lap. If they do that on the last lap as a desperation kind of move, and he admitted it was a desperation move.
I got one for you, and I'm not trying to come at you, Sharon. You know that, but
that's okay.
and I know your opinion on Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt learned that. What happened on the last lap? He hit Terry Labonte at Bristol. Labonte spun in front of him, crossed the finish line first. What did he do the next year? Hit him with 2 laps to go and spun him out. That don't make it right because it's not on the last lap. And that's where I'm saying here, if NASCAR were to say, okay, that's a penalty, I'm challenging them to go back through the rest of the race and look at every incident where somebody drove in. Did they brake or did they go in and use that car? And I think you will find more. Now you have to apply that same rule. If the rule is, hey, you didn't brake, find other spots where somebody didn't brake and hit somebody. And again, to me, the question is whether or not they spun out.
Let me ask you this. Why would somebody step on the gas to drive through another driver earlier in the race when they've got the whole race in front of them? They're not going to make that same kind of desperation move earlier in the race as they would on that last lap. He had his foot mashed on that gas.
Go back and look at Kyle Larson's when he passed SVG, and you might be able to find that one. Was it as bad? I don't believe so. I'm not going to say it was as bad. But again, did he go in there with the intent to hit him? Kyle Larson said so. He said he was mad. You hit me, I'm going to hit you. SVG just didn't happen to spin out. So it does happen earlier in the race. And in that case, Kyle Larson
was different then because SVG did not spin out.
But so then is that a fault of the one doing the aggression? Hey, it's not my fault that guy can't handle his car when he gets bumped or hit, And even in this scenario, change this, and I know this will go into our next hot.
On the same level as what Austin Dillon did to win the race.
See, and I don't see it as that. I'm not saying it's not a good.
He drove through him to get through that corner. To me,
I agree. I'm not arguing that. Did Joey Logano drive through Martin Truex a few years ago? He got to keep his win.
Yeah, that wasn't right either. I wasn't happy with that.
But there again, that's where I'm saying if NASCAR gets into that game, like I said,
NASCAR
then you
already set the precedence with Austin Dillon.
To a degree, yes. And I understand that was on the last lap for the win. Again, this wasn't for the win.
It was on the last lap.
It wasn't for the win.
It was on the last
lap. Now we're changing the parameter.
Position to get into the round of 8. It's very similar.
Okay, so and I'll side with you then. I'm just saying this is the boat it puts NASCAR in. Okay, it's okay unless it's for the win. It's okay unless it's on the last lap. It's okay if they're a playoff driver or not.
To find where somebody made that kind of a bonsai move earlier in the race. And I don't think SVG's is a comparison with
it wasn't as aggressive. I'm just saying.
Not as aggressive, exactly. That's the key word. It's aggressive and with intention.
Okay, but do you admit Kyle Larson's was aggressive with intention? Not as aggressive, but aggressive with intention.
It was not as aggressive.
So okay, now, and I'm gonna try and emulate Dave Moody here. If you're going to set the standard then and make it a rule, what's the rule? It's
They've
if you're
already set the standard when Austin Dillon did it through 2 drivers.
But they did not set a rule with it. It's a judgment call, and this is where.
Here's the key. They look at the SMT data. This is being challenged. Are any of the others being challenged by anybody?
No, because it was during the race and they don't know how it affected, but it could have.
That's the thing. This is being challenged. People are saying it's just as egregious as what Austin Dillon did. And they looked at the SMT data. They can do that here. I can tell you without looking at SMT data, Ross Chastain did not lift and he went right. His intention was to go right through Denny Hamlin to gain that position that he needed to make it into the round of 8. It's just as if he was trying to win the race. He needed that position to get into the round of 8.
I'll use Carson Hocevar, Kyle Busch, because neither one of them is a playoff driver. That's just and that was on lap 1, corner 1. You know, if Kyle Busch wanted to say, hey, look at his SMT. Did he brake? Did he try and make the corner? That's what I'm saying. It happened. What I'm saying is it happens throughout the race.
I know what you're saying. I'm not agreeing with it.
But that's where Moody says, okay, if you're going to make it a rule, and this is where now. I
don't agree with what you're saying, is what I'm saying.
But you're saying, okay, the standard's been set. What is the standard?
I'm not in favor of NASCAR monitoring every aggressive move throughout the race.
Then
That's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. Unrealistic, right? But it is realistic for them to review a move that is for a position to win the race. It is realistic for them to do when somebody is competing to be in the round of 8 and they go through somebody to make that happen. Those can be monitored and should be monitored.
Okay. So by that's the rule then. We're going to make that a rule, okay? Can we make that a rule? Me and you are in charge of NASCAR. We're going to make that the rule. We're going to evaluate and make a judgment if it's... Hold on, stay with me. Stay with me, Sharon. Stay with me. But this is where NASCAR could put themselves. That's what I'm trying to get everybody to understand.
I'm not talking about lap 35. That's not an example.
Okay, but it is, Sharon. Hold on. Stay with me. Just answer my question. Sharon, just answer my questions one at a time.
Making it an example.
Sharon, just answer my questions.
About last lap.
I'm asking you to do me a favor.
Not lap 1. I'm talking about last lap.
And I understand that. And we're going to make that a rule. I'm with you. That's the rule. Last lap, if you do it to take somebody out and win the race, you're penalized. I'm with you. It's a rule. Okay? We agree on that? Me and you, we are in charge.
I agree with you or not. I want to hear your example. I'm not going to agree to something that is unknown to me.
Stay with me. I'm trying my best. I hear Dave Moody do it all the time. I'm trying to do it. So,
but it's not working for me.
But you're the one saying, hey, if it's on the last lap, it's wrong. It should be penalized.
Okay, give me your example. We're stalling. Don't stall. Give me your example.
Stay with. I'm trying. You're saying, is that true? Is this a true statement? You're saying if it's on the last lap and you turn somebody to win the race.
Your example, Jay.
Sharon, I just did.
Ask you again. I'm going to mute you.
Sharon, I am. I'm asking you. A driver on the last lap spins somebody out to win the race. That's a penalty.
Okay. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I've heard him. I want him to give me his example. I've heard the scenario. I know what I said. He knows what I said. I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not going to repeat myself, Jay. You know what I said. I know what you said. Give me your example.
The example is a driver on the last lap spins somebody out to get a position that gives them the playoff spot or the win. That is a penalty. Is that what you're saying you want to see?
I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not going to repeat myself, period. You know what I said. I know what you said. Go on to the example. I know what I said.
We have to move. Sharon, you won't even let me make my example, so we're going to have to move on.
You're not giving the example. You're repeating what I have already said.
And I'm asking you to say that if it's the last lap.
I'm not going to repeat myself.
Okay.
I said I'm not going to repeat myself.
Okay. What's the next topic?
Okay. We'll move on. So you're not going to make your point.
I was trying. My point is, okay, you're right. I'm done. Okay, Sharon.
Myself.
My point is Carson Hocevar, Kyle Busch happened on lap 1. If Carson Hocevar goes on to win that race, he did it on lap 1 and it was okay, but he goes on to win that race. Does that now make it okay that he did it on lap 1?
Jay, it's not
if
okay.
The rule is you can't, okay. And I understand there's a difference between as a fan, and that's where Moody likes to bring this out. If you're going to say it's a rule.
Let me just say this, Jay. Okay, using your example. NASCAR has said it is impossible to, these things a lot of times have to be done by a case-by-case basis. Okay?
I agree with that.
Because not every case is exactly the same. Now, and every case is not the same, okay? If that is contested, and I said this earlier, if Kyle Busch were to contest that, which he did, NASCAR should go back and reevaluate that move and make a determination one way or the other. Now, NASCAR can't make a rule that covers every situation. That's impossible to do. And that's why a lot of these things that happen are done on a case-by-case situation. In this particular case, it did make a difference between whether or not he made it into the round of 8. He did not make it into the round of 8. It was self-inflicted. He did get a penalty. He kind of penalized himself by making the move in the first place. But I think that NASCAR needs to be careful and have the conversation with the drivers that if a move like that is made and for the position to get into the round of 8 or to win the race, then it should be contested. Now,
okay. Well, sorry.
Listen to what I'm saying. With the example that you gave, I think that if I were Kyle Busch, I would contest that. And NASCAR could look at that on an individual case-by-case situation because there could be some validity to what he is saying. Now, are they going to review every single incident that happens throughout the race? Probably not, Jay. That's unrealistic to even think that they could do that. But I think if it's contested and if it's for a win or for a playoff spot, I think NASCAR is obligated to contest it to respect the integrity of the sport.
And that's where I was trying to lead to. If Hocevar, and I know he wasn't a playoff driver, if he were, does that on lap 1, are they going to look at it and say, no, it was a racing incident? But now Hocevar goes on to win the race and advance. It didn't happen on the last lap. He didn't do it in order to win the race, but he did back on lap 1. My point is that's the box NASCAR could put themselves in if they were to choose to penalize this, because then if you're saying it has to because it affected the advancement, it may have happened early in the race and you just don't know it directly affected their advancement.
But it has already happened, Jay. because there was a contesting in the NASCAR Truck Series race about Kyle Busch intentionally spinning or causing an incident. And NASCAR went back and reviewed it, looked at the SMT data, and it was after the fact, it was during the race, and they decided that it was not. And that's the advantage that NASCAR has that we don't have. They have that SMT data to look at. Okay?
And my point,
so it's not a precedent. It's not a box. It's happened before. Look at what happened with Joey Logano and Matt Kenseth. That was during a caution. It happened with Ron Hornaday and Kyle Busch. Again, those were during the race incidents. They were egregious, and they were reviewed by NASCAR, and they took action in some of those cases. They did not take action in other cases. So it's not something that is new. It is something that has happened before. So I think NASCAR knows how to handle those situations. That's why they review situations such as those on a case-by-case basis, because no situation is exactly the same. And so I do think that NASCAR is capable of handling that.
My point was, I think NASCAR is going to put themselves in a box leaning towards having to steward everything, because if they say that is the precedent, if you're going to say it's only because it's on the last lap or directly for the win or an advancement of position, there could be a situation using that example of Carson Hocevar, if he were a playoff driver, and it happening on lap one, but it not knowing it affected his advancement until the end of the race. And that's where I'm concerned, as far as if the rule is their judgment is based off of the SMT data, they will have to go back and look at every incident that involved in a crash. And you're laughing, but I agree.
Right. It's not going to happen.
I agree.
Yet it could have happened every single race this year, and it didn't happen.
So to me, then the standard is do it early in the race so that it doesn't appear to be for the win. I mean, that's what, like I said, go back to the Labonte and Earnhardt.
And there is precedent for that. When Matt Kenseth rammed into the back of Joey Logano, that wasn't at the end of the race.
But that was clearly a retaliatory, I mean, and I agree. As much as I like that, and I think Joey Logano deserved that, I fully supported NASCAR's decision to suspend Matt Kenseth.
Capable of making those distinctions is what I'm saying. They're not going to review every single little incident that doesn't warrant it. And I don't see them having to do it every single race or maybe during the playoffs, because people make those kind of egregious moves. But what's the best way for them to stop making those kind of egregious rules? Coming up with the penalty that penalizes them for making those kind of moves. You can't have those kind of moves during a playoff race.
Okay.
It just is not, and even during the season, I know you're going to come up with every little scenario, Jay, but I'm telling you, NASCAR can make the distinction. And here's the thing. I think part of that is that it's up to Kyle Busch to come back to NASCAR and say, had he not made that egregious move on lap one.
And that's my point.
Okay, but do you think that's going to happen every race? Do you think that's going to happen at every move? It's only going to happen when it is egregious.
Honestly, that's where I'm saying NASCAR is going to, if they penalize here, they may put themselves in that box. And I'll use what you just said.
Why not? Have you ever heard the phrase, Jay,
I'm not even getting to finish mine. I can't mute you. That's not fair.
Okay, talk. But there is a phrase I'm going to tell you about.
You said of playoff drivers, okay? And I'll go with that example. Are they going to examine every move a playoff driver made through the entire race?
Contested, yes.
I'm done.
Okay. Sometimes you worry about things that never happen. And that's what you're worried about. You're worried about things that are not going to happen. And I have concerns about that because I think we're dealing with people that are capable of distinguishing between what is egregious and what is not, what is relevant and what is not. They're not going to be reviewing every single thing that happens.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on then. I'm lost. Okay, our next topic is race manipulation. This should be fun too, because there was somebody who admitted that they may have done that. You want to comment on that?
Honestly, I'm afraid to, because this is something that may or may not have happened. And again, is in that same line. We're going to talk about something that didn't happen but could have. And you just said we shouldn't be doing that. But Denny Hamlin did say, had he known it was Ross Chastain and he was battling for his playoff position, Hamlin might have raced a little bit differently, which means he would have manipulated per a rule or standard. And I wouldn't even necessarily disagree with it, because as it turned out, he passed Chastain, then got hit and spun out. So if you're saying, okay, race for the best position you can, well, I'm not going to get in front of somebody that's got everything to lose and going to bonsai this next corner. I'm going to stay behind him and let him have the position, get the playoff spot. Now, is that race manipulation because he determined Chastain was in and not Joey Logano? Is he against Joey Logano or is he against Chastain? Neither one of them being favorites of his, I'm sure. But if he's got the time to process it, and that was all Denny Hamlin said was, I wish I'd have had the information to make a different decision. He didn't say he was against Joey Logano. He was against Chastain. He wanted, but as you break it down, if drivers advance to the final four, who's he rather face at Phoenix? And he did say that. A Penske car at Phoenix is going to be tougher than what he feels Chastain, at least as of recent. So is that race manipulation? Or is it a strategy of, I want the best for my team, and that's for Ross Chastain to advance right now, because I know I can beat him next week. I don't know I can beat the Penske team or at Phoenix, if it comes down to that. And there's an if there. They both got to get to that championship four to begin with. But that possibility, is it easier or better for me to have to face Ross Chastain at Phoenix for the championship or Joey Logano? And is that wrong? I mean, yes, it technically would be race manipulation, but it's also a strategy of what's best for my team to win the championship. And I think back to in the days, I know this is going back to the old way, but when you could let cars get their lap back, not race hard to the caution. If it was a competitor you thought got caught a lap down, was a strong car, you raced them to keep them a lap down. If it was your teammate or a slower car, you didn't care if they were on the lead lap, so you let them go. Yes, it was race manipulation, but it wasn't as big a thing. There are aspects of that and there again, I know NASCAR tried to make a rule, and again, it goes back to you can't make a rule for every situation, but they got to try and, I would more use the word when it came to that from the Martinsville race last year of collusion of more than one team or multiple teams colluding to, whether it be as a manufacturer or as an organization. I think they need to focus more on that. If it's just one team saying, hey, I'm going to let this guy win because I know I can beat the other guy, so be it. You're on mute.
If you think being NASCAR is easy,
Right.
it's not. I don't envy NASCAR when it comes to these kinds of things. I tend to agree with some of what you're saying there, that NASCAR definitely does not want collusion to manipulate the outcome of a race. That definitely has to be addressed. I'm struggling with, is that strategy on the part of the drivers, or is that race manipulation? And I'm not sure. I don't know how NASCAR deems that, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know that there is, honestly, other than the fact that somebody admits, and you noticed while he was on camera, Denny Hamlin was trying to be very careful with his words.
He just said he wanted the information so he could make a decision. He didn't say what that decision would be.
Yes, that his decision might have been different. And I think all of us could read between the lines there to say he feels that racing Joey Logano is going to be more difficult than racing Ross Chastain. How do you manage that one? Now, that one, I think, is a lot more difficult to manage because you're talking about one driver sitting in his car trying to make a decision based on the circumstances that he's dealing with, and what decision would he make. That's why teams do keep their drivers informed of what's going on throughout a race. He's saying that his team did not keep him informed throughout the race, and so he made decisions based on what was happening on the track, and he was trying to do everything he could to gain positions on the track. To me, ideally, that's what every driver should be doing anyway. But we know that strategy plays into it. How many times have we heard teams ask a driver to slow down on the track? Why are they asking them to slow down on the track? To save gas in some situations. And that's a strategy that they're implementing during the race to help them win the race later. So that would be, in my estimation, a much more tougher call for NASCAR to make going forward to determine race manipulation when it really could be a strategy play on the part of the driver during the race. And if you never hear from the driver, how do you know that that's what they're choosing to do? Now, last year, to me, I thought it was a lot more egregious when we saw William Byron blocking drivers from moving forward. And I heard that that's one of the things, somebody made that accusation about Ryan Blaney, that Ryan Blaney was not passing through the field like he normally does because he was trying to help Joey Logano by blocking other drivers. Is that race manipulation? Where do you make the call there? I think that's a much tougher call for NASCAR to make. But what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's one of, and again, being that fans now, and I say that because, like you said, you've heard that. I hadn't even heard that. Was Blaney as upfront and aggressive as he normally is? No, but he also knows he's locked in, so you could counter that. And there it goes back to, I think it's that one individual team. Maybe not driving as hard. It could be that it was being that Logano was a teammate. You'd have to find that concrete evidence of a spotter or a crew member or a crew chief telling him, hey, don't pass another car, or let that car by you, or Joey Logano needs 2 positions type deal. If there is nothing said and it just appears he's slow, you have no evidence, you have no proof. Then it's pure speculation of, it appears he may have been slower than normal too. And that's where, like I said, I think last year it was a matter of multiple teams colluding and there being enough things said to imply that collusion and manipulation. Yeah, and like you mentioned with Denny Hamlin, he was very specific about his words of, I just wanted the information, I would have might have made a different decision. But from that aspect, again, you'd be able to defend it, because if your job is to get the best finish for your team, and I don't think I have the result. No, I don't have the results pulled up. I'm going to throw some numbers out there. They may not be exact, but that battle between Chastain and Hamlin was for, let's just say, 7th and 8th, somewhere in there. Okay, I can either finish 8th by letting Chastain pass me, or if I know he's in desperation mode and going to do everything he can to get by me, to include wiping me out because I know he's coming and he's in that mode. You're on mute. Yeah, you were on mute, so I don't know what you responded there. But then, yeah, I'm not going to pull out in front of him. I'm going to let him by me so I can finish 8th versus 30th or wherever they ended up finishing by getting wiped out. So again, is that manipulation towards Chastain getting into the playoffs over Logano? No, it's I can finish 8th or I can finish 30th. He didn't need the point, so for him it didn't matter either way because he was locked in, so it didn't really matter. But that's where I think Hamlin was saying I still might have made a different decision just to save the car, or save myself the hit.
And going along with that same example, who's to say that one of the things, and I don't know what the conversation was exactly between Hamlin and Ross Chastain, but I'm suspecting it was a little bit of coaching on how to handle that in the future rather than a bonsai move. He might have, and this is pure speculation on my part, he might have said, next time, have them talk to the spotter and see if the spotters can communicate so that I can make the right move here so that we can work together. Is that colluding though? I don't know.
Well, and that's where Hamlin seemed frustrated just with his crew that he didn't have that information, period.
Yes.
Again,
go ahead.
I was going to say, even when it comes to and take all the playoff implications just in a regular race, if somebody has fresh tires and are just eating you up, that, hey, this guy's coming. He is 0.3 of a lap quicker than you. Don't try and block him. Don't try and hold him off. He's going to get by you.
Exactly. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things here that are difficult to really come up with the answers, and that's one of them. I would not want to be NASCAR in those situations. And I don't think NASCAR wants to be put into those situations necessarily. Now, if it's something egregious, then they probably do want to get involved with it and have those conversations and discussions. This could end up just being a conversation and a discussion stuff like that isn't necessary. But because he didn't really make it into the round of 8 either. But I do think that's multiple teams talking to one another and working together to make that decision when you get the spotters involved too. So
right, and there you have that communication, which leads to the evidence, the proof.
Exactly. So it's tough to know what's acceptable and what's not. I would almost rather see that though, where they're communicating with one another and agreeing upon it versus making the egregious move.
Well, and that's what
signs.
Again, I could certainly defend, and it is Denny Hamlin, so I'm just going to say him, but the person in that position, hey, I'm going to give up one spot and not get wrecked versus get wiped out because he was going to do it one way, get by me one way or another. Right. And again, is that giving 100% for your team in the best finish? Yeah, I'm going to finish 8th and not 30th and backwards. So there is that argument. Now, if you're told, hey, this guy's trying to get in the playoffs, and honestly, my initial thought when I heard it was, oh, he's just trying to keep Joey Logano out. And I thought about it, and I'm like, well, Ross Chastain ain't his buddy either. So, but when you look long term, down again, who do I want to face at Phoenix? Now, is it wrong to make a move in this race to try and prevent having to face Joey Logano at Phoenix? Again, I'm trying to do the best for my team to win a championship. And if that's knocked Joey Logano out now, is that wrong? I'm giving 100% for my team in the best position, maybe not to win this race or get this one position here, but for the championship. And you're right, that puts it back in the hands of NASCAR as a judgment. And that's where I understand they have to in certain cases. My issue with all that is some of it comes more from fan cry than anything else. They feel like they're put in a position to react and do something, and I don't always agree with that.
Well, and I trust that NASCAR is really going to talk it through with more than one person and come up with the right decision. Are they 100%? Probably not. But I think they're going to give it the intended attention and thought process that it deserves. Now, we're talking about some really slippery slope kind of things here.
I agree. I agree with that.
I think, to me, like I said earlier, this to me is a little bit more slippery slope than some of the other things that we talked about tonight. But I do think that it is a tough call to make. And NASCAR has to take all of the information that they have available to them to make the decisions that they make. And sometimes they're not going to hit on it exactly perfectly right because maybe they don't have all the information, or maybe, it's too difficult. It's too nebulous, I'm going to use that word, for them to make a decision. And fans are maybe not going to like that sometimes. But if you don't have all of the needed information to make the right decision, it leaves them in a spot where they can't make a decision. So, again, NASCAR has to deal with situational circumstances sometimes. And the situational circumstances dictate what direction they take. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
The one thing I think is kind of ironic, and this again goes back to in the old days, it was the drivers handled it amongst themselves in the garage. I know at one time NASCAR leadership said, okay, boys have at it, right? Who ruined it? Well. Okay, but who ruined that? Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski, because it got out of hand. And I agreed that NASCAR needed, because now you're talking about safety, not just you two drivers, but if you're out there slam banging at 100 miles an hour and you're going to affect other people. So I can't say totally hands off, but I do think there is a certain aspect of that, of the drivers within the garage, whether it be veteran drivers, pulling somebody to the side, like they said, of, hey, you need to, we saw that a couple times with drivers trying to talk to Chastain, be like, hey, reel it in or whatever, or doing it via their interviews after race. And then if it goes to that next level of, hey, I'm going to give you a lesson out on the track. And I know that's where Earnhardt came in. He was one that he might have went straight to, I'm going to handle it on the track. And then grab you around the shoulder afterwards and be like, this is why I did it.
Exactly. I will say this. I think NASCAR is evolving. And different drivers are at different stages of their evolution. Some drivers have learned how to manage their emotions and everything on the track. I see that in Denny Hamlin, the fact that he's taking Ross Chastain, who was an enemy at some point, and taking that opportunity to mentor him. How many times have we said that recently, that this was an opportunity to mentor and you didn't do that? And that's what I saw Denny Hamlin do this week. As hard as I am on Denny Hamlin, I will say, I think I saw an evolution there. I saw him trying to look at bigger picture. I saw him trying to mentor Ross Chastain. I saw, and I've seen that in a lot of different cases where I think that the drivers, rather than going with the fist fight that we saw in bygone years, and not that far bygone,
Right.
I think that drivers are learning how to manage the situations versus reacting to the situations. They're being more proactive versus reactive. Even Carson Hocevar, who is a little bit of a wild child on the track and gets himself into situations that are not good, a lot of times he doesn't react emotionally afterward. He has learned how to he manages that emotion when we're talking about interviews. A lot of times he just plain doesn't care. He comes from a wealthy family who the cost doesn't matter to him, how much it costs. And so he's going to do what he needs to do to manage. Can he fine tune that and be a better driver? Yes. Right now, he's a wild child, and he hasn't learned how to manage that.
He's a hurricane. Remember, he got nicknamed the Hurricane.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
And he hasn't learned how to manage that yet. So I do see some evolution of this sport when it comes to that. Thankfully, I think we've gotten away from the fist fighting kind of days. And drivers are learning to manage themselves a little bit differently. And I know we've said it here. This was a chance for a veteran driver to mentor another driver. I wouldn't call Ross Chastain necessarily a newbie, but he still has those emotions that he's dealing with. And Denny Hamlin has certainly been there, done that. And he is the perfect person to talk to somebody like a Ross Chastain and give him some advice on how he can handle those situations differently moving forward. So I applaud Denny Hamlin for that. I think he did a good job of that this weekend. And we need more of the veteran drivers to be doing those kind of things with the up and coming race car drivers that are still learning on that learning curve. Will they always listen? Maybe not. Carson Hocevar is a good example of that. I think several drivers have taken him aside and tried to converse with him, and he's not really changing behavior necessarily. Maybe he is, and we're just not seeing it yet. But I like seeing those kind of moments a lot more than I like the fist fighting that we've seen in the past.
And I would have to second that. And I meant I had written that down even from earlier of Hamlin. Again, he said he understood why Chastain did what he did, but then, as you said, apparently I didn't listen to it. You said on detrimental actions, detrimental. He did say he thinks NASCAR should penalize, but he didn't blow up in his interview. He didn't go attack Chastain. You know, they had like you said, a very cordial, friendly, if you will, conversation. But he still did express then later on, hey, I think NASCAR should penalize that. And I understand that. Like I said, I understand where that conversation is going to have to happen, and NASCAR will have to look at it. But he didn't handle it as he maybe has in the past and actually make himself look worse. I thought he did, like you said. And he acknowledged, again, would I have done that if I were in that position? Yes, and NASCAR would probably looking to be penalizing me, type deal. So, yeah, I do think that he did handle that extremely well. I really expected to see a livid interview with him, but he said he understood it. He wasn't happy with it, didn't like it. And that goes back to, I think at that point, he was more frustrated with his team. Hey, if I'd have had some information, I might not have gotten wrecked there.
Correct. I agree. Okay, anything more that we need to say here?
No, I don't think so. Again, that was one of those was a speculation of what would happen had it gone differently, if Denny Hamlin had chosen to act differently, gotten the information. So we'll have to see how that all plays out down the road.
Okay, let me see. Oh, let's go to the injunctions. The other ones are more newsworthy.
Right. If you just want to hit on them real quick before we go into that discussion of the injunctions.
Yeah, I will indeed. Let me put it up here, though.
All right. Yep.
Real quick first.
Well, you want me to read them as you're typing them up?
Read them as I'm typing them up?
Yeah, of just what you're putting out there information-wise.
Oh, okay. I was just going to do the reading.
Oh, okay.
Because I've got the AP up here.
I got you.
And I could put it up on screen if you want me to kind of go through the whole thing. This is on the AP by Jenna Fryer. Michael Jordan stood on the steps outside the federal courthouse and acknowledged he's willing to settle an antitrust suit against NASCAR. The judge hearing the case months ago admonished both sides to come to a resolution. The biggest names in NASCAR, Roger Penske, Rick Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, and Richard Childress, have all called for a settlement. The teams have filed an injunction, and NASCAR has filed an injunction for them to make a kind of preliminary decision. And I'll get to that as I continue to read here. The likelihood of finding some sort of peace agreement, though, seems slim. Just last week, the attorney representing the two teams suing NASCAR said he was looking forward to the December trial. What the non-suing teams have realized is that the entire NASCAR ecosystem is at stake. The suit filed by Jordan, and I think we realized that from the very beginning. The suit filed by Jordan owned 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports has the potential to significantly impact every team. For the first time, they have gone on record calling on both a settlement and the protection of the charter system that is at the heart of the NASCAR business model and the focal point of the court fight. U.S. District Judge Kenneth Bell warned of the dangers of going to trial. Quote, until the jury comes back and we start talking, and only if they find for the plaintiffs, and we are talking about equitable remedies, nobody knows what 26 is going to look like. Bell cautioned at the last hearing, quote, sponsors don't know, drivers don't know, broadcasters don't know, because if plaintiffs prevail, NASCAR is going to look very different. And that's a lot of uncertainty for everybody. Quotes continued, if plaintiffs don't prevail, everybody's got certainty. You ain't racing with a charter. Nothing about the business is going to change. You ain't racing with a charter. Nothing about their business is going to change. But nobody knows that until sometime mid-December. The charter system. The charter system is NASCAR's version of a franchise model. A charter guarantees owner spots in the field, a base amount of revenue each year, and according to NASCAR has created more than $1.5 billion in equity value for its teams since 2016. A year ago, 13 of the 15 teams re-signed when they believed 2+ years of negotiations would not lead to a better deal. 2311, co-owned by Jordan and 3-time Daytona 500 winner Denny Hamlin, and Front Row Motorsports, owned by entrepreneur Bob Jenkins, went to court instead. For months, the other 13 teams privately complained that the lawsuit is creating uncertainty over the future of NASCAR. One session before a mediator earlier this year was not productive, and NASCAR this week is expected to file a motion in hopes of having a judge other than Bell hear both sides and advise on a resolution. The latest motions. NASCAR last Friday asked Bell for a summary judgment in its favor and an October 21st hearing is scheduled. The filing in the U.S. District Court in Charlotte included statements from several NASCAR team owners and executives supporting the charter system and urging resolution. Among the statements was one from Gibbs, who owns the team that Hamlin drives for and has a technical alliance with 2311 Racing. He made it clear he has told both sides he does not want to be a witness in court. And I think it's important for this to be resolved before any real damage is done to the sport. The teams have always wanted the charters, which are currently being sold on the open market for roughly $45 million. And that is the price, by the way, that was paid for the Rick Ware charter between Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware to become permanent. They currently have expiration dates and are tied to NASCAR's broadcast package. I have repeatedly expressed my strong desire for the charter system, and he's talking about for the system itself to become permanent in nature. And I continue to hold out hope that will one day be the case, Gibbs wrote. Doing so, again in quotes, doing so in my view would solidify the financial health and well-being of the Cup teams and the sport as a whole. Penske wrote, he signed the deal because I felt that NASCAR was not going to move any further on their document, and it was time for the team to go forward. From Childress, without charters, the team ownership model is unsustainable. And from Hendrick, without this framework in place, I question the long-term viability of the teams more than anything. I hope the matter is resolved in a way that does not put the sport at risk. What happens next? Although Jordan said after the last hearing in August he was open to settlement, the attorney representing 2311 and Front Row indicated his clients are prepared to go to trial. Jeffrey Kessler said, there is a willingness for settlement talks, but argued the owner declarations only support the antitrust case. In quotes, my clients are not and never have been seeking to eliminate the charter system, Kessler said. They have supported charters because teams cannot survive without them. The declarations from team owners and executives acknowledge this same economic reality. NASCAR's new motion changes nothing, and we look forward to presenting our case at trial on December 1st. NASCAR has indicated there is a path toward resolution before trial, though it is unwilling to renegotiate the charter agreements. NASCAR has also not revealed what the common ground it is willing to reach with 2311 and Front Row. 2311 and Front Row have said they remain committed to meaningful change. Perhaps that is permanent charters, or maybe it is by forcing NASCAR, a private company owned by Florida-based France family, to divest itself from controlling essentially every aspect of the nation's top motorsport series. But going to trial is a dangerous proposition. If the teams lose, 2311 and Front Row could simply cease to exist in NASCAR. 2311 has already told its employees they will be taken care of through the 26th season. It isn't financially viable for the organizations to compete without charters. Hold on. For some reason, a commercial popped up. Let's see, it isn't financially viable for the organizations to compete without charters, no matter how much money Jordan has. For NASCAR, the stakes are so much higher for everyone from the France family. Another commercial just popped in.
You mean to finish? Okay.
Okay. I lost. Let's see. For NASCAR, the stakes are so much higher for everyone from the France family to the 13 teams that aren't suing. A loss could lead to dramatic overhaul of NASCAR's very structure, starting with the charter system teams say they want. Bell could order the France family to sell the series or the racetracks they own. And guess who might be in line to buy this lawsuit has already taken a toll on the industry, and the time for resolution is dwindling. So that's from the AP and their thoughts, their coverage of what's happening in the lawsuit. So I thought when they were talking about permanent charters, I thought that they were talking about that they would have lifetime charters with, if they get a charter, it's a lifetime charter. And I was opposed to that because I think that a lifetime charter is something that needs to be, charters need to be negotiated on a periodic basis. When I read this, it makes me think that what they're talking about for lifetime charters is the fact that charters will be available for the lifetime of NASCAR. And I could be wrong about that, but now I'm questioning what they mean by lifetime charters is my point here. So Jay, what are your thoughts?
Well, you bring up a good point there. I was with you. My understanding was, okay, Joe Gibbs, let's go with 2311, that they always are guaranteed a charter for that team, versus if they're just saying, hey, charters are available. If we don't have one or we want one, they're there that we can't. That makes it a little bit better than just for my team versus that they're available to somebody. But even that, NASCAR can't guarantee the next TV rights deal to guarantee everybody, the 36 that are there, be there. Whoever buys them up or, sorts it out. I still don't see where they could make that kind of commitment when they don't have that kind of commitment of income of that. So it makes it better. I'll agree with that. I'd be more willing to talk about it versus, hey, I'm 2311. I want you to guarantee me a charter versus, hey, just guarantee us there will be 36 charters available all time. I mean, I think about it, go back a few years ago, they guaranteed 43 starters. NASCAR evolved. We didn't have that many teams, so they cut the field down to 40. Then it was they technically, with the charters, said, okay, we'll accept 36 cars as a full field, and to guarantee that, we're going to give these 36 charters. Now, if you want more than that, we'll still allow 40 to race, but 4 of them have to race their way in from that aspect. So, and again, I go back to, I think there could be a different way to financially reward the teams that are there and committed. But I don't see where you can make any kind of guarantee, and I think about just when NASCAR had to evolve of going from 200+ billion, I don't remember what the numbers were, for Sprint to be the title sponsor, for whoever to be the title. They don't have that anymore. They couldn't bring in that revenue. Exactly. So they can't guarantee this charter money going out when they can't guarantee what they have coming in. The big chunk now is right now. The big chunk is the TV rights deal because they don't have that one title sponsor. And again, I'm making up some numbers, but I think they have 4 or 5. What do they call it? Partnership sponsors or whatever. We're the official blank of NASCAR. Okay, you got 4 or 5 of those. That still didn't cover the same dollar amount though that the one title sponsor did, but it was something. But now the primary is the TV rights deal. So that's where their focus is. And they only got that guaranteed to them for 7 years. So how are they going to give out anything guaranteed beyond that? Because they only got a guarantee for 7 years. So I still don't fully buy that.
The other, and I go back to what you said in the beginning as well, and I hope I don't lose it real quick. You were talking about the lifetime. Oh, you said it, and I can't think of it now. It escaped me. I'm sorry. I did what you did. The train of thought went straight through. One team being guaranteed it versus just them being available, X number available. Yeah. You just don't have that crystal ball to be able to know what's going to happen. I think, oh, I know what it was. You said this before when this all started, that Michael Jordan, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports wants NASCAR to evolve much more quickly than what they're in a position to be able to evolve.
Right.
And I think that's the case here. Joe Gibbs Racing said it in his statement. I still hold out hope that at some point in the future that could happen, and maybe it will, but I don't think NASCAR's in the position to make that happen right now. And that's the point that's being missed, I think, by the teams that are in this lawsuit.
That's the one thing I wanted to go to as follow-up. The 23, the plaintiffs, if I got that right? Yeah, they're the plaintiffs. 2311 in Front Row. And again, I'm using 2311 because they seem to be the front runner. I know Front Row is still a part of it, but they're saying, hey, we did this for all the teams, but yet the other teams are saying, no, we also want permanent charters, but we're working towards that. And to show our good faith, we've signed the deal we have now to ensure that we are a chartered team. 2311 is not a chartered team right now, you know, and that's where the whole I'm going to take my ball and go home philosophy comes in. It's got to be my way or not at all. These other teams, and I found it ironic, and it came directly from Denny Hamlin, that this filing and the things that NASCAR released on their side help them. I don't feel it does, because these other team owners are saying, no, y'all are going about it wrong. We want the same thing you want, but we're willing to work with NASCAR, not against them.
Exactly. And to be quite honest and blunt about it, what they're doing is hurting the sport more than it is helping the sport. And I think that all of the 13 drivers that signed it understand that this is something that needs to evolve and not something that needs to happen immediately. Can they continue to negotiate in future contract negotiations? Absolutely. NASCAR says there is negotiation points that they're willing to work with, but what I'm frustrated with, and maybe they don't want to tip their hat, but they're saying they're willing to negotiate, and that, you know, they want to sit down at the table and talk. I know they tried it. It was unproductive, but maybe, and somebody said this before, I think I heard it on Sirius XM from one of the guys there. What's going to happen is that it's going to be a last minute, 11th hour kind of move before 2311 and Front Row Motorsports moves in that direction. And that's unfortunate, because there needs to be planning that's taking place for moving forward. And they cannot do that planning because they do not have the crystal ball that tells them how this is going to come out, you know, in the future. And to wait until December 1st to do that, I think that's what all of these team owners are pleading for. We need to resolve it sooner rather than later, because we have planning that needs to take place.
One of the two key ones I look at of the four, and there were four: Gibbs, Penske, Childress, and Hendrick. The two that I'm going to highlight is Gibbs. Well, actually, I'm going to start with Penske because I want to highlight more on Gibbs in a minute. But Penske, a very motorsports business mogul, I think, is that the right word? Said he signed the deal because I felt that NASCAR was not going to move any further on their document, and it was time for our team to go forward. Not under, go forward. And that means sign the charter, take what we can right now, and work towards the future. Go back up to Joe Gibbs let me scroll back up. I've repeatedly expressed my strong desire for the charter system to become permanent in nature. He's agreeing with 2311, and I continue to hold out hope, but I'm still going to sign the charter. What does that tell you? this is that next step. You know, we got to take it step by step. We got a little bit better of the TV package. So we'll concede on the permanent charter for now, readdress it again, work towards that over the next 7 years, as that's a 7-year deal. And the one thing in my head here as it popped up was, we talk about Denny Hamlin being the veteran driver and coaching another driver. You have the coach, right? What do you do as a team member? You listen to the coach, follow their guidance. And that's who Denny Hamlin drives for. Now, he's owning a team, okay? But there again, and you want to say, okay, well, Michael Jordan, look at the empire he's built. He's a business person. Coach was a football coach and has built a 4-car team in the NASCAR world, so clearly knows what he's doing. Maybe you ought to listen to him. He's a coach and he's the business owner in the NASCAR world, just like Penske, just like Hendrick. Hey, maybe you ought to listen to them and follow their lead.
Well, and Michael Jordan is a business person as well. He has a lot of successful business holdings as well, as does Hendrick. So in one way, I can see where they say it supports it, because NASCAR has come back and said if they lose this suit, they may have to restructure the whole charter system in order to move forward. And then also, you know, the part of this too is that these teams understand that the charter system is maybe not bad. It's not a bad system. NASCAR's not bad people. And they're willing to work with them on the evolution that can get to. Joe Gibbs says, I continue to hold out hope that one day it will be the case. Doing so, in my view, would solidify the financial health and well-being of Cup teams and the sport as a whole. So, you know, he understands, though, that he has a responsibility to his organization, and that this is a process, as all kinds of contract negotiations are a process. And we've said that from the beginning as well. There has to be give and take. You never get everything you want, but you move forward, and in the next negotiation, you go for the next thing that you want to negotiate for on your list. And that's what these guys all understand. You don't take somebody to court for what you didn't get in your lawsuit. It's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Oh, I haven't heard that saying in a long time. Yeah. And that applies. That was a good one.
It is a good one, because that's what's happening here. And I hope that it doesn't come to that, because I like NASCAR. I like being a fan of this sport. And to change it that dramatically, that fast, I don't think is going to be a good thing for this sport. It's taken how many years for NASCAR to evolve to this place? And we've talked about even the drivers evolving. We've talked about so much that is evolving within this sport. And now you're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I just, you know, cooler heads have to prevail here. More logical minds have to prevail here. And I just hope it does in the short term, not the long term. I think that short term, there needs to be some compromise and negotiation that takes place. NASCAR's already said they're not going to renegotiate the charters, nor should they. But they can find a common ground to get through this situation. And I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And like I said, it's been a while. And I think the last time I heard it was on the morning show with Bagley and Pistone. But yeah, it's been a while since I've heard that phrase of throw the baby out with the bathwater. And like I said, I think you're right. I think that is very applicable here. And that's what these other team owners are saying. Hey, we have the charters in place right now. We'll keep working towards what we want of permanent or more secure. But until then, let's work with what we got versus blowing it up and now we got nothing.
Right. And I just want more clarification of what they're talking about with permanent charters. I think they're saying they want to ensure that charters are always available. Am I reading that correctly?
Now that you've put that in my head, that may be, but I still feel like they're saying for individual teams that 2311 says, hey, you got to make sure we have 3 for life. But even if it's not, and they're just saying they're available, that, like I said, it makes it a little bit easier to understand if then you're saying it's for the sport, not just us. But the argument is still the same. NASCAR doesn't have guaranteed income, so they can't guarantee outcome. Exactly. I mean, that's simplistic.
It's so simple to me, but I'm missing something. But I do think it has to be an evolution, and I think that's what NASCAR is saying. I think that's what Coach Gibbs is saying. I think that's what Roger Penske is saying. We understand it's an evolution, and we're willing to work within that framework.
For me, the phrase that just keeps popping into my head is, and I think that's where, even though Denny Hamlin was saying that these statements from the team owners is they're helping their side, not NASCAR's, I disagree, because I think these owners are saying, hey, work with us, not against us. We're trying to get to the same thing, but you're working against us, not with us.
What you're doing is hurting us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are not helping us. You are hurting us and our long-term potential.
Goals,
and right now you're hurting us as far as planning for the upcoming season.
Yep, I agree.
So I do agree that is what the message is here. And yeah, they might be agreeing that they would like to see permanent charters as well, whatever permanent charters are at this point, because I'm a little confused now as to what that means. But I understand where NASCAR is coming from with that. I totally understand it. So
that's one of those of I think about it just for me personally of a job or whatever. It'd be like, well, you guarantee me a job for the rest of my life. You guarantee me well, wait a minute. What if you get hurt, or what if you move away, or whatever? No organization. And I mean, I think about the military. Yeah, I get a retirement. Okay, that is, you serve so many years, and we'll give you half pay. Your retirement. And I don't know what other companies do. I can't speak to the civilian world because I went into the military when I was 18 and never had a real true civilian job, if you will. So, but that you're not going to ask that from a company. I know that, say, colleges have the tenure, and that there's certain aspects to it. But you can't demand it and then say, oh, you didn't give it to me, I'm going to sue you either. You have to come to that agreement.
And I think they've kind of shown, too, that tenure for teachers doesn't always work so well either.
And I wasn't going to get into that aspect of especially I know in Jeff Gordon's favor, and sticking in the NASCAR world, he was given a lifetime contract and then into ownership. But how often do you see that? Very, very rarely.
Infrequently.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. You are taking a big risk by doing so.
Yeah, I think about the contract with what's his name? Not Keelan. Brexton.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't know if that's really legit or not. I know they made a thing about that. Yeah. I know they talked about it and whatnot. I don't know if that's really legit or not. And there again, yeah, if it was signed and Braxton says, okay, I don't want to race, but I got a contract, you got to pay me, so be it.
Yeah. Braxton's, that was done when he was just an infant, I think.
It may not even be that Kyle Busch is there anymore here in a year or two, but we won't go into that. We'll have to save that for next week.
But anyway, you see what my point is when it comes to lifetime charters.
Oh yeah.
There's evidence there that lifetime charters is probably not a good idea.
I just, I mean, it's a high risk. And again, the viability isn't there because, like I said, NASCAR doesn't have the guaranteed income, so they can't guarantee outcome or output.
I don't know what can change to maybe change that outlook, but I can't imagine anything changing to change that outlook, to be honest with you. But we'll have to wait and see how this evolves. Okay, anything more you want to talk about here?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's just mention then, the voting is open for the most popular driver award in all 3 series. That's available, I believe, until November the 3rd. So you can vote up to 5 times a day. And so I know fans are busy voting for who they want to be the
Elliott. Oh, I'm sorry, I sneezed.
driver in all 3 series. Also, Chad Knaus was named the 2025 Smokey Yunick Award recipient. I thought that was rather interesting. And that's kind of an indication of bygone years as well, that we even still have that. But
that's what I didn't hear that announcement specifically, but they were talking about Smokey Yunick today and some old stories. So now I understand why that was a topic. Yeah, I didn't catch the part that Chad Knaus was named for it, but yeah.
And then also a new NBCSN is coming sometime this fall, and that's going to be interesting to see as well. It does make me a little bit happy because there was a lot more programming that was available for NASCAR through NBCSN. So we'll see what the new NBCSN. Why are you shaking your head no?
Because there again, fans just burn me up. And I'm not even a streaming person, so this means nothing to me, but I know it was available and they had some stuff on there and it went away. Everybody was mad. Now they're saying it's coming back and fans were like, oh, it's BS or it's going to do this. And we're just so horribly negative about it. And I was like, what do y'all want? Yeah. Again, I scrolled through a couple and I'm just like, I'm not letting this negativity into my head.
NBCSN was on cable networks.
Right. And that's why I think, and it was then it went from being on cable to a streaming and then it went away altogether.
Yes.
And that's why I said, as far as the streaming, it's not my thing, but for those that do want to stream, I thought it was a good thing. But yeah, people are just so negative.
Yeah, I think no matter what is done, somebody is going to find a negative in it. And that's unfortunate. The last things that I have here, the championship round of 4 races, Superspeedway, short track, intermediate, and road course for the championship determination for those final 4 drivers. There's even been talk about it being 6 instead of 4 in that round.
I had heard, and this again, I caught a little bit of today coming home. And we can save this for next week. And I know we got, because the other one was the championship 4 picks. I think that's going to be, until NASCAR says for sure any tweaks, is going to be an open discussion. But that was one I heard come up today of specifically for 1 on each type of track. And I know there's some logistics, which tracks and can you get a super speedway into the
shorten the number of people, number 1. You'd have to go to like 10 or 12, not 16. And there'd be fewer rounds.
Right. Well, a lot of different things would come into play, but that very specifically of it, if from the track side, not how many participants or how you get to the final 4 to do those 4 races. Yeah, a lot of different things would change, but I thought it was an interesting thing.
Or maybe you satisfy both sides by saying, you take the top 4 drivers in the last 4 races of the season.
Right. I mean, if you're in the top 4, then at the end of the top 4, you got to get in the top 4. Right. And if you're doing 4 races, I could see then it making it 6 or 8 of the championship to run. a lot of different possibilities. And I know several of the shows today said, hey, our topic for today is this. We know this is a topic. Trust me, we're going to have all off season or until NASCAR announces what their championship is going to be, because they're still in discussion about it. And these are just some of the things that are possibly being talked about, or people are throwing out there to get them to talk about. Certainly are some interesting things. So again, I'm fully in favor of, as I always have been. I didn't like it being one race winner take all, just based on the fact of, a lug nut off could cost your entire season. So I understand that, where you don't want to see that have your season have some validity, but I also don't want it to be where I think we need to stay in the playoff format, and not go back to it being a full 36 race. Tweak the format. I'm okay with that. There's some interesting things going about that. And honestly, there again, you talk about evolution in NASCAR listening, not having it at the same track. That's already changed. We know we're going back to Homestead next year, and that is a high probability that even if they stay with it being a one race, that one race will change from year to year. And I was in favor of that.
I could even see it being the last 6 races or something like that, where they eliminate, say, 2 drivers after each round, and it go for 6 races to the championship finale. But they have to be good on all these tracks in order to survive.
That's why I really did like that, is if you guarantee that they're on each different type of track, and NASCAR has 4 of, label them road course intermediate, which is the 1.5 mile short track. And I know you get into is the 1 mile a short track or an intermediate. Okay, they've already defined that 1 mile or shorter or smaller is a short track. So take that for what it is. The 1.5 and 2 miles are the intermediates. Anything bigger than 2 is the Superspeedway, which is now. And Atlanta is the tricky one, because that's a 1.5, but it now races like the Superspeedway. That one's kind of the in between, which there you would have to pick which way you're going to call it. But
and I could see them rotating. Maybe the short track is the final race this year, but next year it's the intermediate track.
Right.
The following year it's a road course.
That one too, especially if it's a 4 race, it wouldn't matter which one's at the end. The road course and the super speedway to me are a little bit more wild cardish than the others.
True. I was
that's where same thing with the short track. I know we've talked about Martinsville, that one, but that goes back to, okay, as long as it's not a one race winner take all, because again, you got to have yourself in a good position so that in the event something happens, you can still recover and it not cost your season. So that would come into play as far as then if it's a 4 race total points over 4 races. Mm-hmm. And I'd be okay with that. I'm willing to negotiate, give a little and take a little, work together.
Give a little, take a little. Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what NASCAR comes up with. And then I said, is it time for championship 4 picks? We can save that for next week.
I will say this, at the Cup side, good luck. I wanted to, I dropped it off because I picked that up from, and it wasn't Dave Moody today, it was Doug Rice.
You got Lane Riggs in the bottom 4.
But you at least have a 1 or 2 heavy favorites. And I know you could say that as far as the Cup level, but I wanted to point this out real quick. Of the 8 drivers that are left, 7 of them are your multiple time winners this year. The only multiple time winner that's not in the final 8 is SVG, and his all came on one style, the road courses. And we knew that, they knew that going in. That 8th driver, like him or not, only has 1 win, and there were a couple that didn't make it in with 1 win, is Joey Logano, but he is a 3-time and the defending champion. Now tell me you don't have the best 8 drivers going at it in these playoffs.
Exactly. You definitely have the best 8 drivers.
And at this point, I'm not willing to try and pick 4 out of that because it's ugly.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I think the system works. I actually do think the system works. You get the best drivers competing at the end. Yeah, we had SVG in there. He won at the road course. But look at the racing that we saw from Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. I still can't get over that guy who said we're talking about the 15th place driver and not the people at the front.
Right.
Not. We're talking about Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell competing with Shane Van Gisbergen and doing a pretty good job of it. They didn't prevail in the end, but they're getting better, and we will see them continue to get better.
And I think back to Mexico City, had Ty Gibbs not had a problem, and to go back to, I know it didn't pan out, but to start, Tyler Reddick got the pole. We hadn't seen anybody get a pole from SVG in 5-6 races. So I agree. I think that these other teams, and the teams have said that. Kyle Larson said that. He is making us better. And they compared that. I think you did a little bit earlier when there were only 2 races. You brought in the road course ringers. They used to call them the road course ringers or whatever. And when the points for it used to be, you could just finish last and give up those races. Once you got to you couldn't do that, what did drivers say? We've got to get better. And went to some of these drivers as driver coaches. I think Boris said still does driver coaching and helps teams. From that aspect. So, that tells you how important it is.
Eric Jones at Chicagoland, when everybody was complaining about the bumps over in turn 3, that's all I heard all weekend long. The bumps over in turn 3, it's terrible. When Eric Jones won the race, and I talked to him after the race, you know what he said? It's my job to figure out how to get around those bumps.
That's right.
And it's every driver's job to figure that out. Complaining about it does no good.
I would have to agree.
Better. And having a driver that's better than you in these races is going to elevate the driving skill of all of the drivers. Trust me.
I have to agree with that.
It will. Okay, so we don't have a round table tonight, but from across the table to your side of the table, let's do our sign off here.
All right. You can follow me on Facebook, Michael Hoosman, MoparMJ8, on X and Instagram. I don't know that you'll see a whole lot of social media stuff this week. Pretty chill week. As far as I know, that may change, but yeah, I can't think of anything going on right now. Again, our race season, Jackson Motor Speedway wrapped up. I will be going up into Tennessee again for some motocross. A couple weeks, I think that's October 18th, that the Southern Supercross will be having their final race and banquet, and it's an honor to be a part of that again. I didn't get to do as much. Yeah, I didn't get to do as much with them this year, but got in some more of the county fairs and at least 2 races with them as far as Supercross.
Okay. I'm going to represent Taz here. Taz told us in our private chat, in 2 weeks, the track that he flags for will be having their annual, the 212 weekend. Our Friday portion will not be streamed, but our Saturday program where the main event is running will be streamed for those who want to check it out. And so he gave us the link there. I'll have to get that out to everybody. But also, he told us that Jeremy Mayfield was crowned the 2025 Grand National Super Series champion this weekend. The final race was on Saturday, and Mayfield was the points leader heading in. He finished high enough that he remained and was crowned the champion this weekend. For those of us that go back a few years, Jeremy Mayfield used to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver and had a falling out with NASCAR due to random drug testing. And he refused to take the road to recovery. And so it ended up that he never did return, which was unfortunate, I think.
You know, it was, I'm trying to think of what poster I had. when my son was born in '98, and at that time, Jeremy Mayfield drove for Penske in the number 12. I think it was a year or two into when they first started that team, that it was Jeremy Mayfield. But anyway, it was the Mobile One, had the red horse on it, and Dalton, as a baby in year old, you'll recognize the horse. So that's how he became a Jeremy Mayfield fan to begin with, was because he recognized the horse on that car, and that's what drew him to it. So yeah, he learned to say Jeremy Mayfield at an early age.
Oh, that's funny. I will tell you, the track that Taz was talking about for that, the 212, is the Saturday portion will be broadcast live on the Cushion, as well as live scoring on Race Monitor. The Saturday portion of the show will be included with regular subscriptions or available for purchase for just $19.99. So there you have it. Again, the track is Dreamfield Speedway in New York. So if you want to take part and kind of go out there, I would highly recommend that as well. Did you give your handles?
Yep.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't know that I'll have much activity this week, but.
Okay. I am Fan4Racing site on Twitter, Fan4Racing blog and radio, everywhere else, including our website, fan4racing.com. And definitely looking forward to the weekend of racing. We do have more coming soon here to Fan4Racing Radio. Jay and I will be getting together this week to put together the previews for the 3 races that will be taking place out at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The ARCA West is racing on the Bull Ring, and the other 2 series, NASCAR Xfinity and Cup Series, will be racing on the 1.5 mile oval at Las Vegas, and definitely looking forward to that. And then on Friday, hopefully Taz and I will be able to sit down. We'll review our ROVAL picks and also give you options for your fantasy picks for Las Vegas as well. So always a lot of fun to be doing that. In fact, when I saw Taz post something, I was afraid he was telling me he wasn't going to be available on Friday. And I was like, oh man, I hope Jay's available. But that was not the case. So.
No, that's awesome to get to see. So good luck with it, and I hope you have fun. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it because I think that was the October 18th as well. Like I said, that's the 3rd Saturday of the month, which, man, I ain't got a minute of spare time normally on that 3rd Saturday of the month.
Yeah, I hear you. And then, of course, on the other side of the race weekend, we'll be back here with the reviews with Sal, as well as our NASCAR Hot Topic Sound Off live stream that starts at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that, Jay, it's that time of the night that we want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. We appreciate.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate everybody for taking the time to hear what we have to say. We didn't get much interaction tonight, but that's okay. There's always next week.
That's right. And hopefully, again, thoughts with Chris, whatever he and his family are dealing with.
Yes.
He didn't get specific, but just said it was a family situation. So hope that all went well. And he'll be back with us next week.
Yes, indeed. We're looking forward to that as well. We miss you, Chris. Okay, everybody. Take care. Enjoy your race weekend or race week. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the previews.
Good night.